Iuliia, thanks so much for talking to us on The World this evening. Can you tell us how certain is it that Russia is indeed pulling out of Kherson?
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me. Second, yes, I am in touch with the people from there and the military from there all the time, because this is my hometown and this is my home region and I have relatives there. So right now, what I know, what right now is happening on the ground is that Ukrainians who live in Kherson already see the Ukrainian military coming there. And we know that first military tried to enter the city last night. So Ukrainians are going out on the streets waiting for the military and taking out the Russian banners where there were all these signs, Russia forever here or something like this, taking out Russian flags. But there is no Ukrainian flag there. And we are, of course, very cautious because we don't know what to expect from Russia. So, we are careful, but we are moving forward because this is a very crucial, critical city for Ukrainians. And, I'm looking forward for hugging my relatives there and hardly can stop crying for the last 24 hours because this is a big celebration. And we are very, very hopeful that we will return this southern region to Ukraine.
How soon do you think that will happen? Like, how long will it take for Russia to pull out the tens of thousands of troops who remain in the city? And why do Ukrainians still remain cautious? They're still there.
So around an hour ago, Russian Ministry of Defense said that Russian military that stayed there, and there were around 20,000 of Russian troops, that they all moved already to the left bank. And I'm sure that still there are some remains because we cannot guarantee until, we have the proof of this. But still, they were going out. And let me just remind you that they are leaving only the right bank of Kherson region, but they are still staying on the left bank and they are preparing there, regrouping there, having equipment there and defense. Let's see how we will move forward, but I'm sure that Ukrainian authorities and Ukrainian military leadership is going to regain all the territory of Ukraine.
What are the fears, though? Because Kyiv is warning that fleeing Russians could still turn Kherson into, quote, a city of death.
You're absolutely right. First, let me say that there is a lot of territory that is mined there. I was in touch with the people in the villages that are like 10, 20 kilometers from the city, very, very near the city, and they are heavily mined. I saw the video from the village where I made my first steps, where my grandparents used to live, and there are a lot of mines there, and everything is ruined. The major school is ruined, every house is ruined, and there are a lot of vehicles of Ukrainian military that arrived there in spring. So I think we will find a lot of people who died there too. But let me say that the Kherson city can be mined too, and this is what our military is saying. The second thing, of course, we are afraid that the Russian military can shell the city of Kherson from the left bank, and their rhetoric, their propaganda still is very aggressive. What they are saying that all pro-Russian, as they say, left already Kherson, and they mean that they can shell pro-Ukrainian citizens. Ukrainian citizens stay there without any light and without any communication. So I have not heard from them for 5 days, and I don't know what to expect when we will reveal everything that Russia has done there for the last 8 months.
Well, at home, Russia has defended its decision to retreat. What has the reaction been there? What has it told its citizens?
Well, they're shifting their messaging all the time, trying to preserve their face. But what I know is I was following this very closely, and I was at the front line there, and I was talking to the people who are fighting there. For the last weeks and weeks, they were carefully moving forward, destroying the Russian supplies with the Western weapons and trying to check all the information. It was very important to verify the information so they do not shell the citizens, the civilians. So that's why they said we were accused of moving slowly, but we did not want to have civilian casualties. And that's exactly the result of this very careful, very attentive, but very persistent move towards the city. Without these supplies, without these chains, Russians just were not able to stay in the city anymore.
Do you think the Russian forces will continue to hold its gains further south?
It's very difficult to predict Russia, but definitely they are gonna stand for Crimea because they annexed Crimea back in 2014. But let me say that what we are also afraid of right now, what we will reveal in the city. I was in touch with the Ukrainian mayor, for instance, who was captured by Russians months ago, and we have not heard from him. And there are dozens of people missing. I was in touch with females who stayed under occupation. They were afraid to go out on the streets because there was a lot of rape. But the worst thing that I've seen in my life was the video of territorial defense guys who were absolutely brutally killed in March by Russians, and their bodies were figured out in park. So what we will reveal after Ukrainian military will come in Kherson city is pretty scary right now, because we have seen what they've done in different villages and towns and cities of Ukraine.
It really is worrying what might be discovered there. How do you think this victory in Kherson for Kyiv might impact calls for Ukraine to negotiate a peace treaty?
This is a difficult question. Russia tries to put the responsibility for the peace negotiations on Ukraine. But let me say that when the whole world was shocked with what is called Bucha massacre, when Russians left the Kyiv outskirts and we saw all those bodies of civilians, hundreds and hundreds of civilians, still, even after that, President Zelenskyy arrived to Bucha and he said that there should be the way for diplomatic negotiations, for diplomatic way to stop this war. Ukraine has always been open for the negotiations. And in fact, we were pushing for these diplomatic solutions for the last 8.5 years before Russia started large-scale war. Everything, the way towards peace depends on seriousness of Russia to stop escalation, to stop the blackmail of famine and energy around the world, to stop killing Ukrainians. Because for you to understand, still with these talks about peace negotiations, Russia sent a lot of missiles just to the civilian infrastructure. And sitting here in Kyiv, I hear a lot of sirens, and my relatives and friends go to the bomb shelters. Today, we had a 5-story residential building destroyed by missiles, and we have wounded and dead there. So the seriousness of decisions of negotiations lies on Russia, but also it's important to understand that Russia can use the time to recharge and to attack again. So we would like to have security guarantees to know that Russia will not come back with the war, and we will stop them of fighting Ukraine and killing our people.
Iuliia, meanwhile, President Zelenskyy has also said he wants to leave an unpleasant surprise for the enemy. What does he mean by that?
He wants to leave an unpleasant surprise.
Yeah, can you tell us anything else about that?
I'm not sure that I've heard you well. Maybe some...
As Russia leaves Kherson, he wants to leave an unpleasant surprise. Or what is the reaction that President Zelenskyy has had so far?
I know that he was cautious, definitely, and he was the first to say publicly, yes, we are happy, but let's be very careful about that. And I know that, you know, he really does not trust Russia, and he has all the rights for this. But let me say about unpleasant surprises. Russia tries to pretend if they are retreating by themselves, but this is already the systematic retreat, because they just cannot fight Ukrainian army on the ground. They retreated from Kyiv first, then from Kharkiv, now from Kherson. They simply cannot defeat Ukrainian army on the ground, and thanks to the support that we get from the civilized world. So anything that will happen right now in Kherson, of course, should be unpleasant for Russia, because we want to kick them out from Ukrainian territory in general.